What's going on, everyone? I'm the casual reviewer. I'm the fine line between critic and casual viewer. And here I'm going live. So if you're watching it live, what's going on? If you're not watching it live, totally cool. This is gonna be my spoiler review for Avengers Endgame, and it didn't come out sooner just because yesterday my mom had still not seen it, and I didn't want to do a spoiler review in the house while she was here in case she heard anything and give it away. But she's seen it now. She's not home anyway. But either way, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to try to go from just start from the top, from the beginning, and go all the way to the end. First, let me start off by saying this movie broke some crazy records. Like literally, the opening box office domestically was 350 million, which was 93 million more than its predecessor, which was, Avengers: Infinity War. So that's insane. 93 million, like crazy. And as far as worldwide box office, it made $1.2 billion. Someone get me into a Captain America suit or something, because they're making crazy money. Kevin Feige, let me be a part of this because this is just insane. 1.2 billion. Most movies don't even make it to a billion worldwide in their entire span. In fact, only 39 movies have made it to 1 billion over their entire span, and Avengers has 1.2 billion in its opening weekend. In the opening weekend, it made 1.2 billion. In its opening weekend, it is already the 17th highest grossing film of all time, not adjusting for inflation, but still it's going to be probably top 20, top 25 at most. 17th. How many movies are out there? How many blockbusters are released year to year? And this movie is already 17th. I have to say, I have no doubt in my mind this is going to be Avatar. It's going to become the #1 highest grossing film of all time. It may even hit 3 billion depending on how it does next weekend, which I'm sure, because word to mouth mostly are the good things about this film. The only thing is that might hurt it and might ruin its chances is the fact that it is a 3-hour movie, and a lot of people do have pacing issues with the first couple acts of the film, and then finally until the end when it gets really good, then people start to enjoy it more. At least from what I hear from most people, it's just that the beginning was a little slow. But I've already seen it 3 times. I actually just saw it today, so it's really fresh in my mind. And so, without further ado, I went over to some of the numbers with it that I thought were insane. Let me just get into my spoiler review. All right, so to start off, obviously we start off with Hawkeye and his family, and he's teaching his daughter how to shoot a bow, but she seems to be really good. So maybe, she becomes Hawkeye somewhere in the near future, because he is Ronin now. So whether or not he retires completely from just hero work, or if she kind of fights alongside him, I'm not sure, but that would be really cool to see. But anyway, so he's got his wife played by Linda Cardellini. She, no matter how old she gets, she's still gonna be and Velma. So, and then he have his 2 sons over to the side, and then she shoots the arrow, tells her to go get her arrow, and then he starts to talk to his wife, and the kids, and the 2 boys, and then he turns, and I forgot what his daughter's name is, but he calls her name, and then all of a sudden she's just gone. Like, you see the dust falling, and then he turns around to where his wife would be, and his 2 sons, and they're also disappeared. Which statistically, if you're killing 50%, probably he would still have at least 1 person there from his family. But I mean, it's also the balance thing. So someone out there might have had, 4 family members aside from them that all stayed alive, and his 4 happened to die. Unfortunate, they do it for the movie. Either way, yeah. So that's kind of what they do there, and this, how it starts off. This first scene is absolutely incredible. It's the way that it really starts it off, I really, really love. I kind of had a feeling that this was going to happen from the trailers, just because in the trailers you saw him shooting bow and arrow with his daughter, and it was like he didn't really seem affected from what happened. And so therefore, plus I know that they're not going to just show some crazy moment at the end or anything like that. So I had a feeling that this is the exact moment that was going to open the movie, and it did. And then it it, then it goes and Avengers pops up, boom, and it kind of starts playing this song that reminded me of the like main theme song of Zodiac. And I don't know what it's called or what it really sounds like, but just kind of one of those chill songs, like kind of like not the mood I was really looking for. So this is one of my qualms with the movie. Just kind of the tonal shifts. Sometimes Avengers, they tend to add some comedy to their movies, obviously, even when it's dark, and that's fine. And a lot of times it really, it's really well done with the comedy and the way that they balance the tonal shifts. But with this, I thought going from that and also coming off of the last movie and what happened, that the kind of tonal shift that it made, like everything is cool, everything is all right, was not it. I didn't really like it. Didn't feel genuine to me, as I mentioned in my non-spoiler review. So I just kind of have an issue with that. For me, when something like that happens, I like the mood to kind of stay at that level, which doesn't mean that it can never get funny and it can never, have a lighter tone somewhere in the movie. It didn't feel like the right place to do it. I kind of still feel like it should have just kind of gone into, Tony Stark and Nebula in space, but not necessarily that kind of, funny, um, light-hearted mood at that exact moment. Anyway, so I'll go into that. I'll segue into the next scene, which is Tony Stark and Nebula playing whatever, the flick football. And it's a scene that doesn't need to be in there, but I understand you showing them doing something out in space. I heard from someone that apparently they were there for 22 days, and Tony Stark is super thin, which also someone said, a friend of mine said that he thought that was kind of strange that he was so thin so quick, but at the same time I really don't expect them to have a lot of food out there, just maybe little snacks. As they said, I believe they were saying they're going to run out of oxygen. They were low on snacks as well, and so it leads me to believe um, that he was pretty much fasting for 22 days with a limited amount of water, limited amount of food, and he wasn't a big bulky guy anyway to begin with. So it makes sense to me that he looked as thin as he did. But so moving on from that, then all of a sudden, as he's drifting, he's falling asleep. I feel like that was the moment that he was going to die. It kind of seemed like he was when Nebula carried him over, and the way he was laying was just kind of like, I almost feel like dead weight. Like he was really just, I thought he was dead. But then, a light comes and it's showing a extreme close up of his face, and you see it turn light and red, and then you see this huge light in front of the ship as he wakes up, and it's Captain Marvel, and she brings him down to the Avengers station. I believe that's the very next part. I could be wrong. I believe it is. But then everyone comes out: Pepper Potts, Black Widow, Captain America, yada yada, the rest of the people, whatever. I forgot whoever was there. And then they go in and they're talking about. And they're kind of talking to Captain Marvel because now she's new. They're asking, War Machine is like, if you don't mind me asking, where have you been all this time? And then she mentioned, a really cool line that I like. There are thousands of other planets, and unfortunately, they didn't have you guys. And so that kind of puts it in perspective for everybody. Thor comes, kind of tries to um, intimidate her with his Stormbreaker as it comes into his hand, and he's just sitting there staring at her, and she's just staring right back, kind of no one backing down, no one letting their guard down, and he says, I like this one. And then they come with the plan. Obviously, she says, well, we're going to go, you didn't have me before. We're just going to go and kill him. And then I forgot who it was. And they were like, just like that. And Captain America's like, yeah, just like that. So moving forward, I know I'm kind of going fast, but there's just some stuff that I don't really have much to speak on. This whole kind of part, I don't really have much to speak on, but I'm just kind of going through it, just to set the tone, the context. Let me get back to focus. Here we go. So they fly out they find out where he is because he had just used the stones for a second time, and so that allowed them to really find out. Because I guess the stones, when they're used, they let out this large amount of, I don't know, energy, gamma, something that that they have never seen before, and when it happened again, they then know where Thanos is most likely going to be. So they go there. He's wearing a shirt. He looks like he's in retirement mode. He's done his job. He doesn't need to do anything else. He's limping and cooking a meal for himself, which kind of seems like an unfortunate time to go and kill this guy. But what you could see it as his last meal, whatever it is. And then they fly through. Captain Marvel hits him with the beam. Then she kind of chokes him out. Then Iron Man comes up from under, holds his hand. Thor comes, chops his hand off. Yada yada yada. They ask him what's been going on. Where's the stones? He says he doesn't have them, but they were used. But yeah, I used them to destroy them, and it almost killed it. Thanos, talking about Thanos, it almost killed him. And so uh, so then, they're saying you're lying, but Nebula mentions, my father's many things. A liar is not one of them. And he says, thank you, daughter. And then, boom, Thor gets pissed, chops his head off naturally. As, he said he went for the head. What did you do? And I went for the head. And you just see him kind of in his face. He's torn apart because there's nothing he can do. He could have killed him the first time, and he didn't. And before he snapped, and now it's too late. So, boom, black screen. I believe this is where. Oh no, Avengers was earlier. So yeah, so black screen into the title card. 5 years later. Now, a lot of people were super surprised that it was 5 years, but I don't know if I thought it was in the trailer. Maybe not. Maybe I just, from seeing so many movies that have title cards, that usually it says like years. Either it says like the year it is exactly, and then it'll say like present day, or it'll say like something years later. Normally, it's not just like 2 days later, whatever. Like, so I maybe I just assumed it was going to say years, so I wasn't as surprised. But a lot of people were shocked, like, oh my god, like for the premiere that I went to on Thursday, and so I wasn't really shocked at that. Then it leads to Captain America and his little circle, like post snapping uh, group, I guess, where people are just essentially kind of letting out how the aftermath is for them, and how they're living their life now, and how they're coping with what happened. And you have one of the Russo brothers explaining, that when he was at dinner, and Captain America basically saying that we just got to all try to move on from what happened. Whilst he also explains that, to Black Widow when he goes back there, that, um, that he tells people to move on, but yet they don't. But sorry, I completely skipped something that I want to get to, because I've completely forgot that this moment happened earlier when they were all together. But when Tony Stark got out, and this incredible moment between him and Cap, where Cap was trying to talk to him, but in this moment, like, you got to shut up. Like, so Cap knew that, because Iron Man was really saying, like, it was you. Like, you said, like, who was the one? He's like, I had a vision. I thought it was a dream. And he's like, I think I remember saying something about putting a suit of armor around the world. And Captain America said, well, that didn't work, which didn't really make sense to me, because they had never done it. That's what they were in the process of doing, and had never done it. And so I don't know why I said it didn't work, because they never even tried it. But anyway, or at least, it turned into Ultron. So maybe that's what he was talking about. But at the same time, like, that wasn't the vision for, the suit of armor with Ultron. So, but I digress. Anyway, so then he says, um, you said that I said that we'd lose, and you said that we'd lose. We'd do that together too, and we lost. And you weren't there. And he was basically saying, like, this giant battle where they could have defeated Thanos, Captain America, although he was saying that, even though Captain America was the one that was saying that we'll lose together, whatever happens, if it happens, and Tony Stark was saying, well, you said that, and you weren't there to lose with us. You said we were going to lose together, but we didn't lose with you. And so that, you could see in Captain America's face, like, what he's saying. But then Tony Stark goes into this is really where this is a huge moment. What he says is big, in my opinion, because it really splits Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, and Iron Man, Captain America, and their idea. And he says, but we're always better after the fact, right? We're the Avengers, not the pre-Vengers, is what he says. He's like, right, and so that's one huge thing, is that Captain America has always been, we're the Avengers. Whatever happens, we'll get through it after. We'll kind of we'll take care of it. You know, but Iron Man, Tony Stark, has always been the one that's like, we need to take care of whatever, we need to basically predict what might happen, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen and do whatever we can now in order to prevent what might happen, not wait for it to happen and then fix whatever already happened. Which in this movie obviously is now what they're doing. This is the first time, well, not the first time, but they're really, their name comes into play here. Avengers. This is what they're meant to be. This is what they're doing. And so I thought that was huge in their character arcs too. That was really a forefront. You really saw what Tony Stark has been feeling. He's letting this out, and I feel like he's been feeling this forever, and he's never really bluntly let it out like he did right here in this moment. And I think it's always because he's kind of let it by, because nothing as bad as what happened before. But now it really, took effect on him to the point where he had to say it straight to Cap's face. And that was a really, really sad, emotional moment. But anyway, so let's go through that. So the aftermath, yeah, like I said, this is when the circle comes. I'm going to skip to when they're at the Avengers headquarters, and it's just Black Widow and Captain America, and they're kind of talking. And then all of a sudden they get the message on the screen, the message you all saw in the trailer at the end of the first Avengers trailer, the first Endgame trailer, where it's Scott Lang, Ant-Man saying, buzz me in, I'm from whatever. And they're like, is this a past recording or no, whatever. So he comes in, and then he starts to go over everything. The quantum realm. Asked if anyone studied quantum realm, and basically he's telling him, like, so what was supposed to happen was Hope. I went into the quantum realm. Hope was supposed to take me out, and then Black Widow's like, I'm sorry, that must have been a really long 5 years. And this is like, well, that's the thing. For me, it was 5 hours, and so that kind of just kind of throws everything off. It's just basically, I mean, we all saw it coming, right? We all knew it. And he's just basically saying that's the thing. Like, when you're in the quantum realm, time and space isn't, really, it's not controlled. But if we could find a way to control it and navigate it, now we might be able to go in at a certain point in time and come out at a different point in time. And and that's huge. And they obviously, the first person in their mind, Tony Stark. So they go to Tony Stark's place, and Tony Stark has a family now. His daughter Morgan's super cute. I loved every moment with him and her, and it was so amazing seeing him actually get to be a father with his actual daughter, and not just, he had the kid from Iron Man 3, and then he's had Tom Holland that he's been a mentor for, kind of a father figure for him for this whole time. And now he's actually got a real daughter. His plan, he's married to Pepper Potts, and this amazing family that he's got, and wonderful family. And obviously Captain America, Black Widow, and Ant-Man, they go there to talk to him. And he was basically saying, like, he can't do it. It's not like Back to the Future or anything that they've seen. It's essentially, it's impossible. The idea that Ant-Man even came back was just a 1 in a billion chance, and that he can't take the risk on it, because this is his second chance. Captain America's like, we can have a second chance, and he's like, this is my second chance, and I can't risk losing it. So I'm sorry, but can't, no go. And so obviously that's a big bummer. And I know, guys, right now I'm gonna kind of cut in, just saying that I'm really just going over the film. But I'm trying again, I'm just giving it context so that when something comes up that I really want to comment on, we're at the right point in time, and I can just kind of stay structured with this. So I'm just going through this whole thing, and I want to get my thoughts all together too as I go through this. So it's not the spoiler like review, I should say, where you're just getting my thoughts on it. But so anyway, so yeah, he explains it. So who else has a big brain like Tony Stark? Bruce Banner. And now we get to the scene where Bruce Banner is Bruce Hulk, and my thought on it is, Another friend of mine told me that, he thinks this movie isn't terrible, but it's just really just okay. And a big reason as to why he thinks this movie is just okay is because he said they ruined his favorite character, which is Hulk. And for me personally, I wouldn't say they ruined him. Like, I know that there's actually in the comics, there's a time where he does this, but I feel like it kind of does take away from the character a little bit. I wasn't totally on board with it just because I love, obviously it's a good idea. If it was a real thing, then yeah, it's a great idea if this was real life and everything. But on screen, right, Bruce Banner is great as Bruce Banner. I love him as Bruce Banner when he's doing his super smart, thinking, yada, 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 figuring things out. I love it. I love seeing it. And then when the Hulk came out, I loved seeing that he didn't think, he just smashed. It was just literally going building to building, killing enemies, more enemies, and without a second thought. The courage that he had, the indirect courage, I guess you can say, of just being faced with someone like what's that dude's name in Ragnarok, that giant ass dude, and just literally facing, like, jumping up against him when clearly he's outmatched. He's like literally this big compared to this giant, right? And I loved seeing that. And in this movie, you don't get that because it's a mix. And really, a part, it makes sense that his strength, a little bit of his strength, gets taken away because a part of the strength was the anger, that helped him. What would you call it? Like, harness a lot of that strength. And Bruce Banner obviously is not mad, so it's a little tough to do. Um, but anyway, so I wasn't completely taken out of the movie, but it wasn't something that I was a huge fan of. And then so they're at dinner, they're talking about it, whatever, and then they go to the Avengers. Yeah, okay. So then they go to the Avengers headquarters again and go to test it out, because, whatever. So Scott Lang tests it out. He goes in the suit. He turns into a teen, I guess, and then an old man, and then literally an infant. Or I don't know, yeah, an infant. And then he comes back to himself, whatever, and Bruce Banner's all happy because at least they know that they can do something and they can control something, but it's the wrong thing. And as Tony Stark comes, obviously, because he solved time travel, and this is actually a really funny moment too that I love, is that it's actually with his daughter. It's such a beautiful moment with his daughter. I love this. Everything with Tony Stark in this movie was phenomenal. Everything. And Robert Downey Jr., I think, deserves to be nominated. Whether the Oscars need to add a nomination for every category just in order to cope with or in order to do that, then I think they should, because he's phenomenal in this movie too, in particular, and over these last 10 years. So anyway, yeah, he's with his daughter. She wants to get a pop while he figures out time travel, or he's trying to figure it out. Takes her to bed, and she says, "I love you 3,000," and he's super happy about that, obviously, as any father would be. Then he goes back to Pepper Potts, whatever. He figures out time travel. Can't believe it. He gets up, he walks over to Pepper Potts, asks, as any guy, you don't just walk in and say something. You gotta, ask, what are you reading? And she's reading something about new discovery on compost, and he's just like, oh, compost. And then he just blurts out, I discovered time travel. And it's a huge thing, right? And this moment is so. I loved Pepper Potts in this too. Gwyneth Paltrow, she was phenomenal in this movie as well. And just her moment with him, where she's basically saying, that's amazing. Like, you can change everything. And he's like, I could, but I don't have to. And she's like, well, why wouldn't you? And he's like, yeah, I don't have to. I could lock it all up in a box, throw it at the bottom of the ocean, come back, and go to bed. She's just like, but will you be able to rest? And that's a whole thing with Tony Stark. He's never been able to rest. There's always things happening. He's always worried about what's going to happen next. He's seen all these things, and he knows that it's inevitable. There's more to come. It's not going to stop. It hasn't stopped. Why would it just stop now? And so that moment switched, and he goes. Then we'll skip over to when he pulls up to Captain America. At a funny moment, he's like, he turned into a baby. He's like, yeah, amongst other things. And then you get the old, Tony Stark, the whole like "I told you so" type of thing. And it's like, if only someone would have told you about that. And he's like, "You did, Tony." And he's like, and then he's just like, "Oh, I did." And so yeah, so anyway, they go in and now they're starting to talk together. Um, Basically now they're talking about getting the whole gang together. So they got pretty much everyone. But first they go to New Asgard, I believe is the first place that they go to in order to retrieve Thor. And what happens? This is another thing that people were kind of on the fence about. And fat Thor. I didn't really know how to a way to build it up, but anyway, they see Thor and he's fat. He's there with Meek and is what's his name, Corgi something. Um, but yeah, so I don't know why I forget his name, Taika Waititi, and he's just phenomenal as him. But yeah, he's fat, and I'll just skip all that because the scene is mainly comedy, and they're trying to recruit him, and he's just basically like, "Nope, I'm good right here," and he's like, we could change, Thanos, and you see this look. I love this look on Thor's face, and he's just like, he goes from really, just making jokes to really serious and just like shaking his head, like I wanted to forget him forever, and that's why I've been drowning in this, and you bringing up his name kind of makes me upset. And basically they get him to come by saying there's bear on the ship. So anyway, they then go over, and this is going to be a long spoiler review. So hopefully you guys are in for the long haul. But anyway, then yeah, so then the next person to go get is Hawkeye, who is now Ronin, and he's killing a bunch of people and a bunch of bad guys. And actually, this I think this is like the first scene that you really see like dripping blood, because when he cuts the dude's neck and he's holding his neck and then blood's just coming down his down his hand. I really love that. I really love that that scene. That was fantastic. I'm super happy that at least they did that, and they showed that basically that's his aftermath. His family's gone. Now the only thing he does is going to kill bad guys, because a lot of times when people feel like they have nothing to lose, they're gonna go the extra mile to do whatever, and it's just like he's not a bad guy, so he's not gonna just go killing anybody. He's gonna go kill bad guys, and you know what? If he ends up dying doing it, at least he took care of some business while he when he died. Um, and so Black Widow gets him to go, and she's just like, "We can change what happened," and he's like, "Don't." She said, "Don't what?" This is a super like soap opera moment. I don't know, just super easy. Like I knew what the whole once he said "don't," I knew exactly how the rest of the dialogue was gonna play out. And she says, "Don't what?" And he says, "Don't give me hope." She's like, "I wish I could have given it to you sooner." Um, or I'm sorry, I couldn't give it to you sooner. And okay, so now they got the whole band on board, and they're going over what they need to do, because um, they did a test run on Hawkeye. He, it works. He goes back to his family, the cabin that he's at. Boom, it works. Whatever. They figure out that it works. Now they just need to know the when and the where for the Soul Stones, so they can go grab the Soul Stones and bring them back here, and then reverse the snap. And then this is a funny part when they first talk about the Power Stone, I believe, and they have Thor, and they do a shot on Thor where he's just sitting there with like a beer can in his hand and shades, and you can't tell if he's sleeping or not. I love that. That's probably one of the funniest scenes that they did, and that's the thing in this movie too. Like normally they have some comedy moments that make me laugh out loud or really funny. In this one, none of them made me laugh out loud. I had some giggle moments and some that just didn't work for me. And so yeah, so this one's a little different with that. So that's one thing also, it's like if you're going to have comedy in a movie like this where it's very dramatic and the tone needs to be darker, at least make them really funny moments, instead of little kind of subtle moments. So unfortunately, that's how I feel about that aspect of it. But anyway, I digress. We're going through the Soul Stones. they're starting to talk about whatever different things, and then we get to the Soul Stone, which is something I wrote down. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notepad that I was writing while my second showing of it, and they're going over how to retrieve the Soul Stone, and Nebula mentioned like that's where my father killed my sister, and unless I'm wrong, um, I'm pretty sure in Infinity War when before Quill makes that stupid decision to hit Thanos over the head and they got him, whatever, and she's saying like he mourns, and then I'm pretty sure Nebula is the one that pieces together that he killed Gamora in order to retrieve the Soul Stone because a soul for soul. So I'm assuming she knew that. Um, Maybe not. Maybe I'm just like assuming or whatever. But in this moment, she didn't mention that part of it, which I thought was weird. So if she didn't know it, then that's a question I have. Why didn't she mention that to anyone? Just because did she feel like if she mentioned that, no one would have wanted to go, which would be smart. And then if she didn't know, then she didn't know. So anyway, so then we moving on. Oh, actually, so oh, okay, no, so we're good. So whatever, they talk over the stones. They say where each of them are. So then they split up into three groups. We got Black Widow and Hawkeye going to Vormir. Then we have Captain America, Iron Man, Ant-Man, all going back to 2012 in the original Avengers when the attack on New York. And then we have War Machine and Nebula that's going to Morag, I think it's called. And that's where the Reality Stone is. And in the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, um, yeah, so that's the three. They all split up, and so the first person to go, I believe, was Hulk. He goes to find Doctor Strange, and because he needs the Time Stone, so he's going to talk to Doctor Strange to retrieve this Time Stone, and then he goes to the all-knowing. I forgot what her name is. I'm sorry. Uh, but so he goes over there, played by Tilda Swinton. I forgot what the actual name of the character is. And I'm just going to go over this whole scene. I know not the whole scene plays out right at this moment, but I'm just going to go through it like that as if it did all play out in one moment. So he goes and he's like, I need the time stone. She's like, well, I can't give it to you. And he's like, sorry, I wasn't asking. Then she does that thing where she pushes him out of his body, and his whole body's on the ground, but then it's actually Bruce Banner, and it's Mark Ruffalo's character, and he's talking to her, and she's talking about, he's like, I need the time stone. We need them all to reverse it. And she goes, well, she said mentioned something. And he's like, I'm not sure the science, um, what you call it, proves that or whatever. And she throws this little, I don't know, this string of energy across the world. Apparently, she needed to go that far out just to be cool, right? She went, just threw that shit all the way down there, and then the six stones come up, and she goes, so here, like, this is one time string essentially. Oh, and if you take one of the stones and you put it somewhere else, then that's gonna create an alternate reality without that stone, which will be really harmful for her reality, even though it might be beneficial to theirs. And he says, well, what if, if we took that stone, we reversed whatever happened in our reality, then we put it back in place where the stone's supposed to be back here, and um, and therefore, nothing changes. And then she goes, well, she goes, well, I can't let you get the time stone based off of a promise, because if you die, then that's not going to come back. And he's like, well, I won't, I promise, and then he mentions, that, well, then she's like, we're supposed to guard the time stone with our life or whatever it is. And then he's like, well, then why did Doctor Strange why did he give it up to Thanos? And she's like, willingly. And he's like, yeah, why did he give it to Thanos? And she's like, and he was like, maybe he made a mistake. And then she has this look on her face of realization, and she's just like, well, Doctor Strange meant to be the best of us. He's like, so maybe, she's like, maybe I did. So she gives Hulk the time stone, and before I continue with that, because that's done, that part's done, the whole aspect of time travel and what I think of it, because it can be kind of confusing. So the way that Hulk mentions it, Bruce Banner mentions it in the movie, is essentially because they're naming off all these movies, Back to the Future, Hot Tub Time Machine, they mention Star Trek, all these other movies that have that basically it's all the same idea of time travel. If you go back and you change anything with that in the past, then when you come back to your present, then everything's changed. And because you changed a part of the past, and so therefore, obviously, the lives had to been, altered in some way to have a different reality today, and and so then that's where Bruce Banner's like, think of it, like if you go back in time, that your past, or your past now becomes your future, and he's like, and he's like, and now current or your former present now becomes your past, and if you change something in your past or in your former past or whatever, if you change something, um if you change something in your current present, it's not going to affect your future, something like that. It's super confusing how he explains it, but I think I kind of understand for anyone that doesn't really understand it. If you think of it, it's kind of like a time loop, right? So if let's just say that time loops every 24 hours, right? So I live out today, and then I'm starting to live tomorrow. But there's another, in a different reality, there's another me living out this day now, one day behind me. There's probably someone in another reality, me myself, that's already lived tomorrow, if that makes any sense, right? So it's a constant, let's just say it's a constant day loop. So now if I go back, right? If I go back a year and I change that time, if we're both there, if I change something within that time, that's going to affect that that casual reviewer's reality for his life. So that for his moment, right, that guy, and now for the rest of his life, his reality changes. However, when I come back to my reality, this today, current time John, me, that nothing changes because I changed the reality for a different me, So now a different me may have a different outcome, but or he might have now his outcome might change than what it originally would have been, because I went back there and changed something with it. But as far as me in this reality right now, nothing's going to change, because I'm not changing that, obviously. It would make sense if I went back in time and I was myself. Like if I went back in time and there weren't two of me, but I just took form of myself back in 2018, and then I changed something and then I came back today, then it would make sense because I'm going back and I'm just embodying myself a year ago. I'm not going back and seeing myself from a year ago and still me being there. So there being two of us. It coming out of my mouth. It kind of sounds confusing, but I hope you guys kind of understand where I'm seeing it. And to me, that really makes sense. So, and from what I've heard, that the way that I don't know, scientists explain time travel today, which if time travel were to be figured out, that's kind of how it would work. It wouldn't work the way you see it in Back to the Future, where if you change something, or butterfly effect, for instance, if you change something minimal, if you kill a fly, as they say in the past, then it's going to change your future, which I guess is not true. To scientists that predict what time travel would be like. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on it. So Bruce Banner gets done with that. He gets the time stone, and now we're going to Iron Man, and another one of my favorite parts where Ant-Man, or where Iron Man says, "Cap, I gotta say those pants did nothing for your ass," and then Ant-Man's like, "I think you look great." As far as I'm concerned, that's America's ass, and I love that. And so they're going they're Iron Man is following the original of Avengers, and one of probably the funniest moment is Hulk when they're like, no, hey dude, we reached the maximum capacity, you got to take the stairs, and then he's like getting mad at and Tony Stark's like, don't, and he just punches the elevator, and he's like, take the stairs. I love it. Sorry, guys, this is super long. I still got a couple pages of things I gotta get through. This is at 40 minutes. Um, but yeah, so okay, so let me kind of go through with this then. Um, oh, I already went through that. All right, whatever. The whole plan fails. You guys seen it. The plan fails. And at this point, I thought, man, what are they gonna do? Like, this is bad. And because Loki took the Tesseract and he phased out and went somewhere else, which I'm assuming because he is going to have his show on Disney Plus that he went, it's going to explore that where he went. But anyway, then they say, I screwed up, he messed it up. And then this is another question I have now. So now we're at a point where they're like, okay, I messed up big time. I don't know what's going to happen. And Ant-Man's like, we only have one Pym particle thing left where we can all come back. We can't go somewhere else and mess up and we're going to die. We're going to stay in the past. And that's where Iron Man thinks, well, there is a moment in time where both the Tesseract and extra Pym particles are. And it's back in New Jersey in 1970. And this is probably, I have to say, other than the whole third act and the fighting and everything, this is probably my favorite moment in the entire movie when they go back, and I'm just gonna skip over some things to when Tony Stark and his dad Howard Stark meet, and it's such a beautiful moment in this. It's again for the reason it's my favorite scene. You get to see him actually have a conversation with his dad. He grew up with his dad for until in his teens or whatever, and then his father died, and he always saw him as a harsh father, but now he really gets to see how his father was as just like a person, not as a father. And they're talking, and you say, they're in the elevator going up, and he's just like, yeah, my wife's expecting, because he's like, I see you got flowers and sauerkraut, whatever. And he's like, yeah, we're having a son today. And that realizes that, Tony Stark is going to get born, or born today, or whatever they're expecting. So sometime soon. And he's like, I got a daughter. And you can clearly tell that he really just wanted to tell his dad that he had a daughter. This is a chance to kind of like connect with his father on another level, at least for the moment. And so his dad, actually, it's funny because they go and his dad asks him for advice. And he's just like, man, let me ask you, when you had your daughter, were you scared? And Tony Stark was just like, wildly. And and he was like, well, and he was just like, I always think, how am I going to successfully operate this thing? And he's like, I kind of just pieced it together as we went along. And he, as they're talking, he goes in and he gives him a hug, and he's like, thank you for everything you've done for this country, because obviously he doesn't know who he is. Howard Stark doesn't know who Tony Stark is. And he would never, think that he's someone from the future. So, extremely emotional moment, beautiful moment between the two. I have a favorite. It's got to be my favorite, just scene, just emotional scene. There's so many good emotional scenes in it. Some of it, it's kind of slow, but as I went on and saw it for the third time today, I realized that I was thinking, like, what parts would I take out? And I couldn't really think of any part that I would have taken out. So I think it's all there's little like moments you could take out, little scenes you could take out that are like 2 minutes long. So it's like, yeah, whatever. You might as well keep it in there. What's 2 minutes gonna do? Whatever. What's 10 minutes gonna do? Just might as well just keep it in there. So yeah, so he talks with his father. So that's beautiful. And then Steve Rogers, Captain America, he has to hide from people, and because they're looking for him, and he ends up, of course, in Margaret Carter's office. Peggy Carter, his his old love, the love of his life, that he never got the final dance with, and he's just looking through the blinds. And I mean, clearly in real life, she would have noticed him, like he was like a terrible stalker that wanted you to see him, and she just never looked at him. Like, he was right there. I don't know, like, you would have seen him. But I don't think it would have mattered to him if she saw him. I think he kind of wanted her to see him. And because when she turns away and she walks away, he kind of gets this face of disappointment, almost like, I wish you would have looked. He would have had a reason to, to see her, or to talk to her. But anyway, so we move on. Let me look at my notes. I've noticed at this point that throughout this movie, everything is going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. It's just everyone says it. I don't know if there's a reason for that, or if they're trying to tell the audience like, look, after this, everything's going to be okay. We're still going to be good. I don't know what that was really, all about. Then we go to the reality stone. We're going through all that part. I might skip that part. I didn't write anything down with that, I don't think. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to Morag. I'm not gonna do the reality stone part. Honestly, you guys have all seen the movie if you're watching this. Probably, if you haven't, go see the movie. So you know what goes down. The Nebulas and Gamora. Then Thanos. He finds out everything, right? All right. So we're at Morag now. It's between Hawkeye and Black Widow, and they find out by the Red Skull that they have to kill someone that they love in order to retrieve the Soul Stone, and they have to do it because there's billions of lives at stake that need to come back. And both of them are attempting to give up their life, saying that they're going to give it up. Even the moment where he's like, "I guess we both know who it has to be," and Black Widow's like, "Yeah, I guess so." And and then Hawkeye's like, "I think we're talking about different people here." And it looks like he's like, all right, you win, whatever, you're a pain in my ass. And they're doing this thing. And then Hawkeye throws her to the ground. And then he gets up and she grabs him and throws him to the ground. And then she shoots him with a taser thing. And then he takes it off. He gets up, shoots an explosive arrow that knocks her back. And then he goes and jumps off. And what I want to say about both of these people is I know not a lot of people are a big fan of them because they're not the forefront, they're not superheroes, but these two characters are massive in the Avengers, or in the Marvel universe, I should say. And the reason they're so massive is because they're the two truly human people. Now, obviously, Tony Stark, Don Cheadle's character, the War Machine, I know, Captain whatever. Anyway, I should know that, but it's just slipping my mind. Anyway, they're human people, obviously, but they have armor suits that make them fly, the two beams, whatever. Hawkeye, Black Widow, they don't have that. Black Widow and Hawkeye all only have their skills, their abilities, their human abilities that they've earned, and that's what makes them so massive in this universe. It makes it feel like you yourself can be a superhero, and so that's they're massive for that reason, and they're very emotional. And Hawkeye is honestly kind of the one keeping them all together, as you saw in Age of Ultron. He's the bread and butter, like he's literally the center, the one that can calm them down, cool them off if he needs to. These big heads, egos going at it. He's got to be that neutral. And so this moment is massive for me. This is a big moment. And eventually, obviously, as you know, Black Widow shoots. I don't know how she gets that, but she shoots the thing, attaches it to his belt or whatever, and he can't get it off at this point for whatever reason. And she lets go, and she ends up falling to her death, which is it's a sad moment. It wasn't super sad for me. I'm not super connected to Black Widow. I know I just mentioned how important they are, which they are really important. Just myself, I wasn't really attached to Black Widow that much. And her coming out with a new movie after the fact that this has all happened kind of makes me feel like, how are you going to make this work to a point where it's interesting enough for me to care now that this whole thing has happened? But we'll see. I mean, Marvel normally doesn't fail, so hopefully it's good. Anyway, so that happens. When am I at? Boom. Now this begs the question. At this point, so Gamora. I mean, we know Gamora then now comes to the future. I guess the 2014 Gamora is able to come with Thanos through the portal. Which also, how didn't they hear that? When they all start to come back, and then the ship goes through the roof. Well, they all came back, and they have all the Power Stones in the Iron Man, Hulk snaps, and while this is happening, while he's going through and he's trying to fix everything, and and then he snaps, but while he's doing that, the ship goes through, and they don't hear it. Like, how far away is this other building that they're apparently doing this? I thought they were connected, and it's like, yeah, he's getting hurt, and maybe it's a little loud or whatever, but they would hear that. I don't know. That was just weird to me. Anyway, why? This is where the question comes in, and a friend of mine also mentioned this, that when I saw it the second time, it did also make me think. Why is Gamora able to come back, but as they continuously mentioned, Black Widow wasn't? Um, uh, it doesn't make sense to me, because the thing is, you could have gone back to a time that Black Widow's alive, which, was not that far before that point. You could have gone back and you could have retrieved her. And so this is what I don't really understand. Um, because if you, I don't, I don't know. So that's where the time travel kind of gets really weird. And there's another part at the end that I'll mention. And I was just trying to think in my head that maybe, there's a reason. And if there is, please let me know in the comments, because I don't know. I can't think of any reason as to why it's different in this aspect. I just really feel like if Gamora could come back, that Black Widow should be able to come back. Or maybe the fact is that they can't go back to get Black Widow before this point, because then they wouldn't have gotten the Soul Stone. But I thought, when you go back in time and you change a different reality, it changes that reality, but not the one that you're in. Because the matter of the fact is, back in 2014, that was still their reality. Just because they weren't teamed up with Gamora yet doesn't mean that that's not their reality. Like, it's still like they're still living somewhere else. Just like when Hulk went up to, Tilda Swinton's character, and she said, Doctor Strange, you're about 5 years early. Doctor Strange is performing surgery, 20 blocks that way, or whatever, 20 miles down that way. So this is where a big question comes up for me. So anyway, let's move forward on that. So you can choose how the gauntlet works. Another question. Now I got a few questions that's coming up, because the Thanos, the ship hitting the ceiling, and then so you can choose how the gauntlet works. It's really strange to me, because of the fact that so Thanos snapped his fingers, wiped out half of the universe, and then um, Hulk comes in and he snaps and brings everyone back, which is fine. But then we get to a point where then Iron Man, obviously, right before he dies, he gets all of the stones. He snaps, and now every single one of these aliens die. So he clearly had to have chosen that those aliens all die. So I am confused as to how the gauntlet works, and when you snap, what goes on. And as well, Hulk also mentioned that he tried to go back and get Black Widow, which is like, I didn't know that was like a thing. Like, I just thought you would have snapped and everyone that was snapped gone comes back, but not that like you could snap and try to get Black Widow. Um, so that's really confusing to me on how the gauntlet works, and I would need a little more explanation on that. And I hope the Russo brothers come out, and they, whether or not they wait until the DVD comes out and people can watch it and they can explain some of these questions that were asked or whatever it is. I would really love to see that. I'm super curious as to some of these questions that multiple people are asking, just not just myself. Um, but anyway, okay, so why can't you snap twice? So I guess my thought process was, um, why couldn't Hulk in that moment snap and bring people back, but then them think to snap all of the aliens away? Like, obviously they didn't know that Thanos was gonna come back, whatever, or Thanos, they had killed Thanos, so I guess they wouldn't have thought that the army would have came back, and then they got shot with the whole thing. But then they could have, I feel like, easily gotten the gauntlet over to the Hulk, and he could have just snapped again. But maybe that would have messed up with the whole 14 million things. I'm kind of thinking with you guys. I'm trying to figure this out for myself in this, just because I don't really have a time limit for this video that I want to make it in. So I guess that could have been a thing that I would have messed up with the 14,605 possible outcomes, and maybe if they tried to give Hulk the gauntlet, then they wouldn't have won then, because that wouldn't have been the one possible way for them to win. Anyway, skip that. Oh yeah, okay. So then we get to the scene. Probably the most beautiful shot in the entire movie, is they're fighting Thanos now. Thanos is sitting on the stone, he's waiting, and they're fighting with him, and it's not this point yet. Anyway, let me go through this. They're fighting him, and Thor is about to get killed with Stormbreaker because Thanos gets control, starts to push Stormbreaker into Thor's chest. Captain America then, first, before you even know it's Captain America, I forgot what the name of the hammer is, but hammer comes, hits Thanos off of Thor, and then you see the hammer come off the ground and go into Captain America's hands, which is amazing. Even for someone that doesn't read the comics and didn't know that's an actual thing, that was so cool. And a lot of people have questions on that. And the reason I believe is just because the hammer doesn't. It's not an Asgardian who is worthy. It is just for someone who is worthy. So if anybody is worthy, probably even more so than Thor, it's Captain America. And so for me, I just feel like he probably was always worthy. And what some people, I guess, they mention is that Captain America is just such a good guy, and they know he in Avengers: Age of Ultron, he knows that if he would have picked it up, that Thor might have felt like kind of upset and been sad. But in this moment, obviously, if you can do it, you should do it. So he did, and it worked out amazingly. So I love that. Then I'm trying to just going through points now because we're getting to an hour, and I kind of just want to go through this. So, well, we get to the shot of Captain America standing on the rock by himself against every one of the enemies, and it is a beautiful shot, absolutely amazing shot, the best shot in the entire movie, in my opinion, just the greatest shot, and it really speaks to Steve Rogers and Captain America's character, about no matter the odds, no matter what is against him, he's going to do what he can to do what's right and to try to help, or to try and defeat evil, as far as he can go. And that really shows it when he's standing there on that rock, and they're all looking at him. And then this is when we get to the great part that I really love of, Cap, can you hear me? Like, on your left. And then you see Doctor Strange open up the portal, which Black Panther. I'm not really sure why they came out first. If that was, for what reason it was, just because it did so well, maybe. And so for them coming out first would give a huge applause, and so that's why they put them out first. And then then Falcon comes out, Sam, and then as he's flying, you see the shot of all the circles opening and everyone coming out, Spider-Man, yeah, everybody. I mean, I can name off everyone, but Spider-Man, I guess I felt was the biggest one. And so now they're all battling, and what I think is funny is just like, how is Bucky alive? I don't know, like he's got is a shot, as a machine gun, and it kind of looks like he's using real bullets, so it's not like they altered this machine gun that he has to shoot out lasers so he can have infinite ammo. It kind of just seems like he's actually shooting bullets, and like, wouldn't you have he would have ran out so long ago, and if he wasn't hiding, I feel like he would have died easily, because he wasn't around anyone either. So I thought that was kind of strange. Then we get a scene with, well, I don't know which one was first, but we get a scene with Gamora and Quill, which is kind of funny. Gamora saves Quill. Quill's like, Gamora, and she kicks him in the nuts twice, and he's like, you missed the first time, but you hit both of them on the second. And so I thought that was really funny. And then Nebula said, like, it was obviously Gamora was like, really, this is who like I liked, or whatever, and she was like, it was either him or a tree. And so that was pretty funny. And then we get to Spider-Man and Iron Man, which was awesome. And Tom Holland as Spider-Man is amazing. He's the best Spider-Man by far, the best Peter Parker / Spider-Man that we've ever had. It's just the way that no matter how terrible things look, he's always making comments that don't matter about like he's or just like at bad times, and he's just like, oh my God, Tony Stark, like, Like you can't believe what happened. You remember from before Thanos did the snapping thing, and we are on space before he snapped, and then he snapped, and then I was starting to turn to dust, and then Doctor Strange was like, all right, we've been gone for 5 years. We need to go help him now, and then he just hugs him, and then he's just like, oh, this is nice. It's such a beautiful moment, just because like again he was the first real child. He's not really the first. He was the second, but he's had more time with Tony Stark, where the first kid in Iron Man 3, just had Iron Man 3 with him. But so he was really the first person that he really started, I think, to connect and a fatherly level with Peter Parker, and have this really large emotional connection with, aside from Pepper Potts. So I love that. That was a great scene. Um, then we get to, oh man, the goosebumps, dude. The moment where I got goosebumps. I get goosebumps every time, and I absolutely love it. Is when Scarlet Witch and Thanos are face to face. I Scarlet Witch is probably one of my top favorite superheroes, maybe top five. Even though she doesn't have a movie of her own or anything like that, she is just amazing. She's probably the strongest one, other than Captain Marvel too. She's nuts, and oh my, the scene I get goosebumps every time when Thanos, when she's like, you took everything. She's there with Thanos. She's like, you took everything from me, and he's like, I don't even know you. And then she just has this like emotionless face, and she's just like, you will. And then she goes to town on him. Oh my god, that moment was phenomenal. But then, all right, so we get the most. So she's about to kill Thanos. I'm assuming probably split him in half, something. And then he says to rain down or whatever, and she's like on our troops or whatever. He's like, just do it. And then the giant ship starts shooting lasers down at the ground and everything. And then, as this is going on, all of a sudden, they stop and they go up and they start shooting into the sky, and you don't see anything. And they're just like, and personally, I feel like every time I see it now, like the second or the third time, and every time after, I'm gonna be like, how the first time did I not like put two and two together and think like they're obviously shooting at Captain Marvel? But when she came out, I was super surprised and shocked. I was like, wow, that's really good writing. Like, how are you gonna just come up with these things stop shooting? And that's perfect. A perfect entry for Captain Marvel, so that they start shooting at her. And obviously she's not phased, she's Captain Marvel. She just goes through the ship, destroys the ship, it goes down, and at that point Thanos looks defeated, even though he's not at this point. Um, and yeah, so whatever, they're fighting. What's going on? Oh, I'm trying to think, like my thoughts. What happens after this? She hits Thanos, knocks him, whatever. She takes the gauntlet and she goes to, because obviously the van is the last portal. They already destroyed the portal before, so now they got to go to the van, which has the last portal. She these people, they hit Thanos when Thanos is trying to stop her, and so he falls. But so instead of trying to kill her or anything, he takes his helicopter blade and whips it at the van, and it blows up, and she gets knocked back. Super smart writing. And then at that point he gets the gauntlet, and he puts it on and he goes to snap it, and she is able to grab his hand before, and I forgot what he does, that he like knocks her back, but he just like kind of knocks her back, something along those lines. I might be wrong. um but oh, no, 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 this is when Captain America comes, hits him with the hammer, and then Thor hits him with the axe, and they're trying to kill Thanos then, but somehow he gets ahead of them. He throws Captain America to the ground, punches him once, he's knocked out obviously, and then Captain Marvel comes back and she's holding it, and he goes for a nasty headbutt, which anyone that actually does that in real life and doesn't get phased, you're literally Thanos. And but she doesn't get phased, so I guess you're Captain Marvel. And then he takes the Power Stone, which this then brings up another question for me. He takes the Power Stone out and punches her, and she flies back. Why didn't they try taking this out before? Like, the one thing that kind of saves them is the whole fact that Doctor Strange said there's only one way they win. So it just kind of makes sense that that's the way that they win, because, there's only one way and it plays out that way. But, still, the one way could have been a different way. And so I was just thinking, like, like, and as far as it could have been a different way, I mean, like the one way could have been like they could have wrote it as a different way, but like it's a white. Anyone would have thought like take out the Power Stone, just wield that power and just destroy Thanos. Like if it's that powerful, are you kidding? To just take Scarlet Witch, have her split them in half, or just have everyone go to town Captain Marvel, like Captain Marvel, or the way in the comics. There's multiple ways, but have let Drax avenge his family and just punch a hole through his body. But so that happens, and then we see Iron Man and Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange just looks at Iron Man. He has, Carpal's tunnel or whatever you call it, and he goes like that, and and um, and so you realize like there's only one way. And earlier Iron Man was like, okay, so how does this play out? And he goes, if I tell you, it won't work. If I tell you, then it's not going to happen that way. And so at this moment, he puts up the one. And I think this is a really telling moment that Iron Man kind of knew. Or he was hoping. He obviously made this glove just in case. He didn't just have it. He made it just in case. And because Tony Stark's always like a million light years ahead. And I think in some way, I think he kind of just felt this was it for him, but didn't want to think that and tried to go through every other option. And when Doctor Strange did that, it made him realize like this is the only outcome. And so he goes and he grabs the glove, and you don't see it, but he takes the stones out, and Thanos goes to snap. Nothing happens because he doesn't have the stones. And then before he snaps, he goes, "I am inevitable," just like he said in the beginning. But he says, "I am inevitable." Snaps, nothing happens. Tony Stark then goes, "And I am Iron Man." Like I feel like they could have said that a different way, but they didn't. Whatever. He snaps. Sorry, he snaps, and boom. And this is again where I had that question of how can he just choose to kill all of the aliens, because half of the universe's creatures were supposed to go away, and yet they didn't, or like, it doesn't look like they lost half, unless if that was only half their army. Oh my God. I don't know why he didn't send that army the first time in 2012, just everybody. There's no way they would have lost. But so assuming that was half their army or whatever, like Tony Stark snaps, but then completely wipes out. Well, I'm going to say that's their full army. He completely wipes out their full army, and none of them die. So that's where the question of like how did you get to just choose, I guess, somehow. I guess when you snap, like your mind goes into like an options section. You just click whatever button, is the one that you want. And so that happens, and then we're starting to get to the end here. So this spoiler review, I guess, or explanation is kind of going through. You get a really sad moment with Tom Holland. I had an idea that I feel like would have made it way more sad. Like obviously it's super sad because he's like, Mr. Stark, like, and Tony's not saying anything, and you can tell he has this face of like, he's dying, like he's not fully there. And which I love that he's not really saying anything. There's one little thing that he says, which is okay, but I kind of wish that he didn't say anything the whole time. But Tony Stark is there, or not Tony Stark, Peter Parker's there, and he's just like, Mr. Stark, Tony, and they pull him back. I think it would have been, maybe you guys think this would have been super sad, just let me know. But if he would have been there with Tony and would have said something like, come on, Tony, we won. Like, let's go, Mr. Stark. Like, we won. Like, try to, like, pull him up or something and try to take him. I think that would have been really sad. Like obviously, super father figure. He wants him to live. He wants him to get up and, like, move on, like, continue to go. But it's not happening. So then Pepper Potts comes in. Again, the moments with Iron Man and Pepper Potts in this, Tony Stark, I should say, and Pepper Potts is... and this is another beautiful moment. Everything comes full circle in this movie. But he's sitting there, and this is where he's like, "Yeah, babe," or something like really soft. Like, I kind of wish he just didn't say anything. Like that wasn't something super necessary to say, I guess, when you're dying. If you were gonna say one thing, and she just looks at him, and he's like, "Look," she's like, "Look, we're gonna be okay. Like, look at me, we're gonna be okay." And she's like, "You can rest now." And oh my, you can rest now. That is just whoever came up with that's the final line, phenomenal. Um, this guy is great. So Chris. But anyway, so it was like literally phenomenal that ending when she says you can rest now. Just those words alone just moved me in the theater. It's just phenomenal. And then so now we're going through it. You're at his wake and you have this beautiful score in the background. Um, and everyone is literally there. Marissa Tomei is literally there. Aunt May is there. Um, and then you have the boy from Iron Man 3, which a lot of people were like, who is that kid and why is he there? And it's necessary. He's the first kid that Tony Stark really was a mentor, or not a mentor necessarily, but like kind of a father figure like for that kid, because the kid mentioned, I believe, that his father ran out on him, I think he said. And then yeah, because then that's when Tony Stark was like, well, stop being such a pussy or something like that. And so like he was, kind of like a father figure for him. So it makes sense that he was there. And then Nick Fury was there, which was kind of weird because Nick Fury is such a huge part ever since the beginning. Like, he found Thor's hammer. It was there since then, and he's been in the Avengers and everything. That I feel like just having the small part at the end, and not even a part, he's just there at the end, was kind of weird that he wasn't in it a bit more. Not to say that he had to be fighting with them, obviously, but just I feel like he would have in some way been there, or should have been, but he wasn't. Whatever. I digress. Then we're going to. There's a part with John Favreau. What's his name? Happy, and then Morgan, Tony Stark's daughter, and they're sitting on the bench. And this is a phenomenal moment too, where he looks at her and he's like, "Are you hungry?" And she says, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, what do you want?" And then she just says cheeseburgers, which if you guys didn't really catch on why that's such a cool moment is because back in 2008 during the first Iron Man, obviously when Tony Stark gets out of that cave and everything, the first thing that he wants, he says he's hungry and he wants cheeseburgers. And so it like father like daughter, I guess, it's just like a super awesome connection there. And so that was awesome. And then, to top this whole spoiler review off, is Captain America and Peggy. And I guessed, actually, I'd completely assumed, and I feel like everyone did, was that, from the Captain America, the first Avenger, and he said that he was going to have that come back to have that dance with Peggy, and it never happened, that somewhere it was going to end up happening. And that's the final scene. He's having that final dance with Peggy, and it's a really nice moment as then the credits pop on. I kind of skipped when he was an old man and he was talking with Falcon, and now Falcon is Captain America. But the big takeaway from that scene was when Peggy and Steve Rogers was having that dance. And then this is also where the question I kind of put off from earlier with time travel, which is kind of weird, is that it was kind of, at least if it wasn't totally structured, it was trying to be the whole timeline situation. But then at this moment, when they're sending Captain America back in time, Bruce Banner is like, all right, so, I think Bucky or Falcon maybe asked how long it's going to take. And Bruce Banner said it's going to, as long as he needs for him, and 5 seconds for us. So now at this point, he's basically saying, so like, you can spend as much time as you want in this other reality, and it's only going to take 5 seconds. He could be in this other reality now for 100 years and decide that he wants to come back, and it's going to all happen within 5 seconds now. Because earlier it was a little structured, like when they were first giving time, he's like, I'm going to send you back a week and 1 second, whatever. But now it's just like, it's just kind of weird that you could spend just infinite amount of time in the past, and it only takes 5 seconds for us. It just doesn't really add up to me. But yeah, guys. Other than that, just I guess what my real review is for this movie. The score was phenomenal. Again, there were some parts that could be taken out, but as I seen it more again for the third time I saw it today, and I'm trying to think of what parts could be taken out. There's really everything seems necessary other than some little parts that are a couple minutes, so it's not even worth taking those other parts out. But yeah, just some of the tone shifts didn't work for me. The comedy, not a lot of it was that funny, and kind of it just didn't seem right in some moments. the traveling thing, there's a lot of questions to it, and until like it's explained, it kind of takes some points down for me. But other than that, I mean, like the score is phenomenal. Alan Silvestri on the score is just unbelievable. Beautiful score. And for the most part, everyone was great in this movie. There was not a single acting flaw that I saw that I really cared about, at least if it happened. Because the third act of this movie was just unbelievable. So I think that's gonna conclude my review. Um, if you were watching this live, Chris, again, thank you. It was nice to have you here. If you're not watching this live, then awesome. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of the movie. If there's anything I missed, anything that you loved, anything that you didn't really like, something that you needed more explained. Again, the whole timeline thing is kind of weird, and I'm definitely going to be looking out for other reviews, or not reviews, but videos from people that kind of try to explain it. So maybe I can get more of an idea of it. And with that being said, where was Captain Marvel the whole time? I guess to answer that question is she was out saving other planets, because that's not the only planet that she's taking care of. Earth isn't the only planet that she needs to take care of. So they explained that in the movie, and obviously, it made sense, I feel like. So I'm not mad at that. But again, that's gonna end this stream right here. I hope you guys enjoyed it if you were watching. And if you see this again after that is live stream, just let me know anything in the comments. Let me know how you felt, and let's have a debate or whatever. I mean, I love doing that, and this movie was phenomenal. I'm gonna see it even more, probably 5, 6, 7 more times, or not more times, but that many times. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. And with that, I'm out. I hope you guys have a great day.